so let's finish up 4.3. I think you had mollusks. Examples of mollusks are clams, mussels, and snails. I think you have that hard shell made of calcium carbonate right there, and soft parts decompose, and the hard parts like bone and shells last longer and can be fossilized. And when this calcium carbonate precipitates, which you remember from chemistry, turns solid, it floats down to the bottom and creates layers of rocks, and that's called limestone. And it's kind of a light colored rock, and it's easy to for acidic groundwater to eat holes in it, and it's pretty cool. A lot of limestone, you get caves, so that's pretty sweet. So I don't know if you've ever seen something like this. This is an extinct animal. It used to be millions, or very, very long, I think 200 million years. This is a trilobite. And if you look at something similar today, like a horseshoe crab might be its closest, it resembles most closely. Horseshoe crab. Again, it used to be very common in the Earth's early seas. Okay, so I don't know how many of you people recognize this or looked it up, but this would be an Arion. And it's kind of an early lobster. You can kind of see, especially with the tail here. You got the antenna, and pretty cool. You got the pinchers and the claws. But yeah, pretty cool. These organisms we can see. So the transfer, so movement of carbon between the ocean and the atmosphere. We first should understand that CO2 dissolves in the water or in the ocean, and a lot of the extra carbon we've been making lately has been going into the ocean. It really scientists were wondering, where's all this carbon dioxide? There should be more, and they eventually realized the ocean was absorbing it, but we're hitting that limit where it's not absorbing it like it used to. So for a while there was kind of a lull, and then it was rising again, and we're like, why did it kind of smooth out? And the scientists figured out it's because it was going into the ocean. But especially with a warmer ocean, I'm sorry about the handwriting. Warm ocean, less carbon dioxide dissolves, so that is not going to last forever. We're going to have more CO2 being released from the ocean. And we know there's a lot of plants and animals in the ocean, and they make CO2. So CO2 from respiration enters the atmosphere. All right. And this next question, you got to look at that chart. I have to look over here. But how many gigatons are removed from the atmosphere by plants? So you look at that diagram, and you'll see 61.2 gigatons of carbon dioxide that would be there without the plants are now the plants removed. And you see also, if you look carefully at that chart, 60 gigatons are added. So if you'll see, it's a net 1.2 gigatons removed. So it's not really they're removing 61.2. They are, but remember they're giving back 60 gigatons because of the respiration there are. Remember, respiration and releasing CO2. Plants undergo respiration, people, not just animals. Changing land use. Now, we think about changing land use. What do humans like to do? One of the things we really like to do is chop down trees, get rid of wetlands, take out the native vegetation. And guess what? That reduces the ability of the land to absorb CO2. So if you look at your diagram, you'll see changing land use, 1.6 gigatons going in the atmosphere. We also see 0.5 going out. So it's really, 1.6 going out of the atmosphere from forest loss and other plant loss. But changing land use is taking in 0.5. Of course, we do plant things. Agriculture is the main driver. So agriculture. Oh man, I'm getting laggy. So, but you'll see it doesn't make up for the plants that we take out. So even though, hey, we plant all this corn and all this rice, it doesn't make up for all the other plants that we had to get rid of in order to get that rice there. Oh yeah, there it is. So you'll see this right here. This is, agriculture that we're planting. This is removing forests and other plants so we can use it. Slash and burn in tropical areas, you've heard that, in Brazil, and the oil palms in Indonesia. They have to get rid of a whole lot of tropical rainforests, and that's shoving that land use number up and up and up. We've removed most of, what we're going to take out, in the United States, the forests and the grasses and the native shrubs, for our, farms. But in other parts of the country, they're wiping out a lot more. Okay. Oh yeah, you see here, service to the ocean. 90 is released, 92 is absorbed, so it's absorbing more than it's releasing. But you also see exchange of CO2 in the ocean. But this, remember people, this is the main thing. This didn't used to happen before humans. This is what we're digging up, this fossil fuel, kicking it out into the atmosphere, and that's what's throwing us off balance. So we need to figure out a way to get back in here. And some oil companies have been trying to do that. They've been testing out model plants where they take out natural gas, but they're trying to replace these caverns with CO2, sequestering it, saving it under the Earth's crust. So if that can get done more efficiently, it would be a huge thing. So why is the air monitoring station in Hawaii? What do you know about Hawaii? It is very isolated. There's not large populations nearby. And what else large populations have? Lots of factories, cars, power plants. And what do all these things do? They make CO2. So levels can go up and down. So you want to monitor the air in an area that's not going to be affected by these inputs of CO2. So it's isolated. If you look, I should have a picture of that here, but Hawaii is extremely isolated, way out in the middle of the Pacific. So it's a great place to get what you might call a clean air sample. You don't have a lot of these other things influencing it. And it fluctuates during the year, goes up in the winter, and down in the summer. That is the summer and winter in the northern hemisphere. So it goes up, say October to February. It goes down from, say, March to September. And that's because of northern hemisphere has a lot more plants. Sorry about that. Handwriting has way more plants because it has more land mass. I showed you that diagram. You take a diagram of the Earth, you split it right down the middle, Most of the landmass is above that, and very little below. Plus, the areas below, a lot of it is desert. And here we go. Yeah, that cycle, CO2 peaks here right after April, and then it goes down, starts to rise again, and that's why you get this up and down. But remember, the general trend is up. Okay, increase, and now we're up about 405 parts per million. Okay, starting in 1958, this was in Hawaii, and then I think it was in the late 70s. Cape Grim came online. That's in Australia or Tasmania. That's our second monitoring station. Okay, also very isolated to help figure out or help monitor precisely the amount of CO2 in our atmosphere. Oh yeah, here's Mauna Loa. Actually, for a little geology note, see how smooth that is. That's a typical shield volcano. We kind of think of volcanoes like this, and then boom, stuff flies out. That would be a composite volcano. And shield volcano, since it erupts smooth lava, it gets very smooth size. It almost doesn't look like a big mountain, but it is. Okay, so you need to make a carbon cycle. So, on your diagram here, you should have, the ocean, then the land. You should have factories, trees, animals like humans, and what you'll have, CO2 being released by all these things. Hopefully, I know you can make a much nicer diagram than I can here. CO2 in the atmosphere. And you also see CO2 leaving the atmosphere, right? Going into the plant, of course, exchanging it. Here we got fossil fuels. Releasing that CO2 in the atmosphere, not coming back in. Hopefully, if oil companies get together, they'll be able to pull some back in, but it's going to take a lot of work for them, a lot of money, and we'll see if oil companies want to do that. CO2, remember, goes into the water and also out of the water. Okay, we have all sorts of marine plants and animals. That's my little fishy. It's taking in, releasing CO2. But we also have, marine plants and little plankton taking in CO2, using CO2. And let's see, I can't go backwards on that, so I'm trying to look at if I've missed some parts. Burning trees. Oh, combustion in the forest. So, forests release that CO2. Respiration. I have it here. But also, if you have increased temperatures, you're going to have more burning of those forests. So that's combustion of the forest. So why don't you write that down? So make sure note fires. Okay. Carbon is stored in that plant matter. And it looks like carbon moving. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, right here. We eat plants, so carbon's moving from the plants to us. Okay. And releasing from the ocean, decomposition. You also have decomposition from land too. So make sure you add that. The more I write, the more laggy this gets. And then that looks like everything you need. I think there's maybe one more picture. Oh yeah. So increasing global temperature. If it gets hotter, we're going to have more AC, more air conditioning. And that's going to make us, and we get air conditioning by burning fossil fuels to make electricity. So we're going to be putting more carbon dioxide in the air. It's going to be getting hotter. Also, respiration will increase. So decomposition rates will increase with a warmer world. and that will release more CO2 into the air. And what was the other one? If it gets hotter, oceans hold less CO2, so more CO2 from the ocean. Basically, the carbon dioxide comes out of solution and then goes up into the atmosphere. Oh, and then maybe another one. What happens to when your forest gets super dry because it's hot and hot and hotter? You get forest fires. And that's going to release more CO2, and it's going to prevent them from absorbing it from the air. All right, hope you enjoyed this.